Hello and welcome back to our Dad Stamps video. Whilst I've been away, I've spent time enjoying my summer holidays and collecting information on new topics for this series. And whilst I was doing that, I came across an intriguing story that I thought might be of interest to people. It revolves around the Leaders of the World series that was produced in the 80s by it was by a company called Format Printers International, and it was an omnibus series for the small islands of the British Commonwealth, mainly St Lucia, St Vincent, Nevis, Tuvalu, and all the associated islands with those dependencies. And it's quite interesting. One of the reasons I've taken notice of this is some time ago I bought a large collection of these stamps. I'm very keen on motor cars, particularly vintage cars, having once owned and restored a 1958 Morris Minor. And they did a series on cars which featured the picture of a car and also a side-on drawing of the same car. So each stamp actually comes as a pair, and these are actually quite nice looking stamps. And as I said, I bought a huge lot of them, and I've split them up and got them into different lots and tried fairly unsuccessfully to sell them on. So I thought I'd do some more investigation into these and why such nice looking stamps are really not that popular. And what I found out is quite amazing, although I still haven't been able to get to the bottom of it. So as I said at the beginning, it's quite an intriguing story. The Leaders of the World series featured mainly trains and cars that were produced throughout history, but it also included some on the Olympics, on cricketers, on birds, butterflies, cats, dogs, a whole range of subjects. But they all followed the same format in that the stamps came in pairs. With the cricketers, it was a portrait of the player and then an action shot of the player. With the birds, and indeed with the other animals, it was two similar types of bird next to each other in a pair. With the Olympics, it was two different people doing the same sports. And with the trains, it was similar to the cars, a photo of the train and then a drawing of a train. So they all carried on with the same sort of format. Now the intrigue of this involves forgeries. Surprisingly enough, when there's a successful set of stamps, there's always someone who's willing to make forgeries and to make money out of it. But it's not actually clear which ones are forgeries and which ones are genuine reprints. So I'm still not sure which ones I've got, and it's not that easy to distinguish between them. The company that produced these stamps were Format International Security Printers, as I've said, and in 1981 they were contracted to print these sets for the islands that I mentioned, and did a good job, and they were a very popular series and bought largely by collectors around the world. In 1988, a guy called Clive Feigenbaum was installed as chairman of Format International. Now, he was a very colourful character, and in 1970 he was expelled from the Philatelic Traders Society for selling labels resembling stamps without indicating that they were not genuine stamps. And he seems to have done this a lot. Small islands that in some cases don't even have a population are persuaded that they need a post office to send mail to the mainland, and the fact that they have a post office in theory makes them genuine stamps. However, it is rather dubious. If nobody lives there, what is the point in having a post office? And the sole purpose of printing these stamps is to sell them to stamp collectors. So You get some from, for example, Stafford Island in Scotland. All of these, whilst they have stamps, really, in my view, shouldn't have stamps and are not worth collecting. And they are not listed in Stanley Gibbons' catalogue for this very reason. Anyway, after being expelled from the Philatelic Traders Society, in 1971 he was then charged with 14 counts of receiving and dishonestly handling stamps and proofs stolen from the British Museum. Now, he always denied the charges and was actually acquitted. So in 1988, he took over as chairman from Format International Security Printers. And this is where the story gets a bit murky, because according to him, and there is some evidence to back this up, although it's not conclusive evidence, he was contracted to reprint the series. And so a whole load of reprints were released onto the market, and these obviously had an adverse effect on the price of the originals. And the Leaders of the World series, from being quite a nice series and a well-liked series, went down in popularity. The whole story is then further complicated because in 2014 it was estimated that a company somewhere in Europe was reprinting these stamps on a large scale. So there is now thousands upon thousands of these stamps in circulation. Many of them, it's difficult to tell the difference between the original and the reproductions. There's also another curious thing in that errors and overprints were deliberately printed. So again, I'm not sure whether this was format printers who were doing this or whether this is the forgers who were doing this. But there is now a whole load of errors and overprints with specimen printed upside down, with the centre upside down, with the country name missing. So what initially appears to be a rare stamp and quite an interesting one was actually deliberately manufactured and deliberately printed in huge numbers solely to make money from. What makes this even more difficult to sort out from what's real and what's fake is that apparently there are ex-employees of format printers who have a grudge to grind and are so deliberately spreading false information. And there are other people who are in some way stand to make money out of these, and so putting out lots of false information. I really haven't been able to find what's going on. I don't know how many original prints there were. I don't know whether the reprints were genuine. And what is clear is that there's certainly some fakes out there now, and lots of them. I've seen many times sheets and sheets of colour trials and imperfs, which I'm not convinced are genuine, and these things come up on eBay on a regular basis. There is a guy who's producing a website with lots of information about this scandal, and I can't begin to put into words how much detail he goes into it and what's there. If you're interested in this, I will leave a link to the website. What he does do is print invoices for the reprints. So, assuming those are genuine invoices, then it would seem that format printers did have the authority to reprint the sets. But a lot of the invoices are not signed or stamped. So, are they genuine? I don't know. Anyway, that was just a short introduction to the Leaders of the World series. I thought it would something quite interesting to start off this season. As I said, the main interest is cars and trains, and I have a big love of vintage cars. So whilst the stamps are probably completely worthless, I still have what I consider some nice stamps, and in large numbers. So some of them I've got in sheets, a lot of them I've got in fours. So yeah, if you're going to buy these, beware. The old adage, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So be careful with getting reprints, getting fakes, and once again, happy stamping. So thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this. It's good to be back making videos again. And as usual, I will try and get these out every 2 weeks. So see you again in 2 weeks' time.